Hey y'all, it's me, Humioka. I'm going to be here talking to you about some of my books. I'm going to go ahead and start with The Kissing Booth Nightmare. That book was never intended to get to the point that it did, simply because not a lot of people like reading about that kind of stuff. Originally, Justin was meant to blackmail Elle into being his girlfriend simply because he felt that since Noah was the player of the school the year before, the most popular boy, had all the guys terrified of him, and that Elle was what won his heart, was who he won his heart. I figured that he would think that being with Elle would make him look better, to help his popularity. I never intended for him to become abusive, but as I wrote, the story took on a life of its own. Plus, when it got to the point where, how it got to the, in the middle of the book, where Elle gets away from him, I felt it made her stronger. As for coming up for air, just like in real life, your past, especially that kind of a past, will come back and knock you on your butt, but you have to continue going from where you were. It's not coming up for air. It's not going to be very much. It's not going to be long. Nowhere near that one book I wrote. Simply because I never intended any book to reach more than 50 chapters, and unfortunately, I guess in a way, fortunately, because you all liked it, I ended up with it being over, almost close to 150 chapters. Anyway, that book, I'll get to it. Next came I Hate the Kissing Booth. I thought, what if a guy showed up Elle's senior year and fell in love with her, or thought he fell in love with her, and realized that the only thing that allowed Elle and Noah to get together was the kissing booth, and how everybody talked about how great it was and how cool it was that it made Elle realize that Noah loved her and vice versa. And so the guy was going to hate the one thing that caused the girl that he is currently crushing on to not want anything to do with him. My book that is simply titled The Kissing Booth. Well, that one was just my way of allowing other characters from Noah and Lee's life to come into play, even if it meant that he wasn't that great of a guy. And to prove how much Elle meant to the twins, that they would even go up against their own family to protect her when the family is wrong. Yes, right now I'm currently looking at my phone, so I can, because that's kind of hard to memorize all the books I've written. The Kissing Booth surprise was actually kind of funny. My daughter was going through summer school for her dyslexia to help her get a hold on it, and I was sitting in the car, and next thing I know, the scene where Elle surprises Noah at Harvard popped into my head. And none of the books I had going on at the time was going to work for it. So I just wrote the scene. The thing is that everybody loved it and started asking me to write before and after the scene, which is what I did. Now, I'm pretty sure there were many people wondering, just like myself, what would have happened if Noah wasn't the first kiss? What if there was a guy out there that didn't listen to Noah's threats, that didn't care what Noah had to say? and that it would take place before the kissing booth, which is what caused the kissing booth, not the first kiss. And as requested, I wrote it as well from Noah's point of view. Because of course, what was Noah going through? Because everybody, by the way he reacted to her with other guys, even in the book versus the movie, it's obvious that he has feelings for her from the beginning. So what would he be going through while watching her date some guy that he can't intimidate to get away from her? Noah's mistake came about. What would happen is Noah, for the first time in his life, gave in to peer pressure. Listened to other people other than himself. And decided to put what he thought was Elle's best interest ahead of his own by breaking up with her and pretending that he couldn't handle being separated from her. And of course, even though before the end of the book they end up together, I had to continue with Noah's love to prove that he continues to prove to her that the worst thing he ever did was let her go. The kissing booth, new love or not, was never meant to actually end as quickly as it did. I actually at one point had seen that maybe Elle would actually end up close to getting married, or at least be engaged to someone else before she realizes and Noah realizes that they were meant to be. But as you all know from reading comments, too many of the fans can't stand Elle and Noah not being together. So I got them back together. And that happens to be the book that was only supposed to be 50 chapters, but it ended up going to 150 because right when I was starting to get everything wrapped up, something else would come up to put a little, pop into my head to put a little hitch in the giddy up. Or one of you all would ask me, hey, what about this? And next thing I know, my gears are going click, 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 and away I go. The Two Dorks was a book that someone requested that I write to give a little more input on what Noah was like watching Lee and Elle, knowing that he loved her. Which is why, again, it wasn't that long. It was a mini novella. Because even though Noah pretty much knew for a long time that he was in love with Elle, he wasn't allowed around her very much. Or he didn't go near her very much because he didn't want her to know. So a lot of his point of view was watching from a distance. And so it was mainly written the few times he was allowed to spend time with her before the kissing booth. The kissing booth betrayal came about when people started asking me to write something about what if Lee became the problem in their relationship. And so that's why that one is currently going. I'm not sure how much, I know I'm not going to take it out much longer because personally, I don't like the fact that Lee would do something like that to his best friend. But then again, having a childhood best friend that actually lasts is very rare. My childhood best friend, we ended up losing touch when we got back in touch again. He ended up dating this girl who accused me of chasing after him, and so it destroyed our friendship. As for my high school best friend, He destroyed that all on his own. But I have other people in my life that now that make everything better for me. My husband, my children, my girls, I should say, my best friends that that for the first time really in my life are all girls. I've always had at least maybe one girl best friend and a ton of guys, but I have one really close best friend. It's kind of funny. There's four of us that are always together. That we hang out, we go out to eat, we have girls' night, and the funny thing is, two of us were always. My best friend, I go to her house a lot. My kids and her kids are friends, and it's funny because the other two ladies, they're the ones that are always close together. They pick each other up and you know, and drive to the girls' night. While I do the same thing with the girl that I'm closer to, but we have a blast nonetheless. Now, that's all there is for the kissing booth. Let's go on to some of my other books. The Best Friend Found. I started writing it, but it didn't work out. If you read it and then continue to Stuck in a Romance Novel, it kind of plays on the same thing. But Stuck in a Romance Novel is something that I have been toying with since I was in high school. But I never put it down on paper because I just didn't think it was good enough. But I figured here, since I started getting a following, I would start trying to put some of my original stuff up, not just fan fiction. An Unlikely Ally came about because I started reading some of the werewolf books here on Wattpad and fell in love with them. And I thought, you know what, let me try my own. Actually, An Unlikely Ally is not just a werewolf book, it's a Twilight fanfiction. And that's where that came from. And I just figured, I've always been Team Edward, I'm not gonna lie. But when I started reading some of the fan fiction, I started wondering, what if it wasn't Edward or Jacob? And I started falling in love with the idea of her and Paul being together. Go figure. Anyway, as for Uniting the World, which is my werewolf book, it's something that I've basically getting ideas from every book I've ever read on supernatural stuff. The only, vampires. I mean, I read all genres. Anyway, I hope this, lets you all understand more about my thinking processes. I hate it when I can't post, but I try to post every day simply because I know what it's like when you're reading something and you're waiting for it to come. Anyway, God bless. Take care. Cuídense. A little bit about myself. I'm a quarter Japanese, a quarter Anglo, and as you can tell by my skin coloring, Hispanic, 50%. The good thing is I do speak some Spanish, and so I can get a general idea of if I want to include Spanish in the books. But then I have to write it in English and get how to spell it in Spanish because being an American citizen, I went to school here. I was born and raised here, so I do not know how to read and write in Spanish. But I can do it in English. God bless. Again, peace out. And for my younger fans, thank you so much. And as those of you who have already done it know, as long as the corrections are done respectfully, I don't mind them. And as several of you know, I do not mind getting ideas thrown at me and see if I can incorporate them into stories. And I do try, but sometimes I just can't see where they're going to fit. And heck, sometimes I end up spinning it into a story all its own.